Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of my favourite animations of all time. Now whether it is an anime or just a regular cartoon is up for discussion, but it is a great show regardless.
Avatar. Now, check this out.
When it comes to reviews and insights into the show's characters, the most commonly talked about characters are of course Aang, Zuko, the Water Tribe siblings Sokka and Katara, and everyone's favourite uncle, no, not him, but close. But of course, Uncle Iroh.
Zuko, you're really going to get a kick out of this. The lotus tile was in my sleeve the whole time!
Heck, even Appa gets some love. But I today want to talk about another character, Princess Azula. I always find villain backstories just as interesting as the protagonist, sometimes even more than the protagonist when they're written correctly, and Princess Azula is certainly, in my humble opinion, an underrated villain. She is a character that is often overlooked due to her age, gender and appearance, but make no mistake, Azula is one of the greatest villains to ever grace the small screen. For those not in the know, she is the daughter of the main antagonist, Lord Ozai, and the brother of Prince Zuko. Even though Zuko and Lord Ozai were often considered as the main antagonists in Avatar, especially Ozai, to me Azula is the villain with the most layers. This hit me most recently as I was rewatching Avatar. For some reason, I noticed a lot more of the qualities that Princess Azula had that made her such a top tier villain. So in this video essay, I'm going to go through those qualities that made Princess Azula a great villain for an already well written cartoon. Leadership, skill and strength, merciless tenacity, and deceit. By the way, there are spoilers in this video. Avatar is an amazing show, so if you haven't watched it already, go watch it and come back. Do not continue this video if you don't want to be spoiled. Let us start with a key skill that a villain in Princess Azula's position must possess: leadership. Not all villains need to lead people to their ideas, but those who do need to do well to seem convincible that they are a force to be reckoned with. Princess Azula had a knack of influencing those around her and having them follow her as their leader. Here's a scene that made me write this whole video in the first place. For context, it's when Princess Azula and her two most trusted companions, Mai and Ty Lee, infiltrated a nation called Ba Sing Se. The Grand Secretariat of Ba Sing Se, Lord Feng, was arrested and imprisoned for essentially treason. He's trying to collude with Azula with the help of his soldiers, although he tends to double cross her later. In this scene, a soldier is giving Lord Feng an update of the collusion. Listen to how he describes Azula and her leadership skills.
The movements of all the generals in the Earth King have been plotted out step by step.
Good. And the Fire Nation Princess is cooperating?
Oh yes, more than cooperating. She's really taken charge. She's terrifying and inspirational at the same time. It's hard to explain.
Some may call it fear, others may call it power. Regardless, Azula has the charisma and viciousness to make like-minded people, i.e. soldiers and fighters, look up to her. The show portrayed this even better when Lord Feng was able to break out of prison and was ready to double-cross Azula, only to be double-crossed by his own soldiers.
Now comes the part where I double-cross you. Dai Li, arrest the Fire Nation Princess. I said, arrest her. What is wrong with you?
It's because they haven't made up their minds. They're waiting to see how this is going to end.
What are you talking about?
I can see your whole history in your eyes. You were born with nothing, so you've had to struggle and connive and claw your way to power. But true power, the divine right to rule, is something you're born with. The fact is, they don't know which one of us is going to be sitting on that throne, and which one is going to be bowing down. But I know, and you know. Well...
You've beaten me at my own game.
Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Azula's well-spoken confidence in herself and her ferociousness is what gives reassurance to those who follow her. There's also a fine line between respect and fear in leadership, and Azula definitely erred on the side of fear. A good example of the latter is when she recruited her childhood friends Mai and Ty Lee to join her in a mission to hunt down Zuko and Iroh. When Azula initially asked them to join, Ty Lee was not interested in joining as she was happy in her role as an acrobat in the circus. While Azula said that was fine, she was not actually impressed and manipulated Ty Lee into joining her. In a passive-aggressive way, Azula sabotaged Ty Lee's performance by attending the circus and using her influence as princess to up the ante in the risk that Ty Lee was taking in tightrope performances.
Been done. I know. Set the net on fire.
Of course, Princess.
Brilliant, just brilliant. Ooh, what kind of dangerous animals do you have?
Well, our circus boasts the most exotic assortment.
Release them all!
When Azula visited Ty Lee after the performance, Azula gave her a fake congrats and said she would attend Ty Lee's performance again tomorrow, suggesting she will be there every night to put pressure on her. Ty Lee caved in. She didn't want the constant fear that her or her friends at the circus could get hurt from Azula's presence every night. She said that the universe has spoken to her and that she would join Azula, but as a viewer, you can tell that this wasn't because of any spirituality, but actually she was just so afraid of Azula that she was willing to give up something that made her truly happy for the sake of the safety of her and her friends from Azula. One other episode that showcases Azula's leadership skill is The Drill. In this episode, Azula is tasked with leading a team to infiltrate Ba Sing Se's through their outer walls. The crew, Mai and Ty Lee, heeded to her every command, despite facing opposition from the Avatar and his friends, as Azula was able to maintain her team's focus and on the task. It was a mixed ending for Azula. She lost her fight against the Avatar, but achieved in breaking through the outer walls of Ba Sing Se, which was an achievement in itself. But throughout the entire ordeal, she showed real composure and decision making, all important traits of a great leader in the face of battle. As firebenders go, Azula can easily make a case as one of the top 5 firebenders in Avatar. She is an extremely powerful firebender, and her abilities and skills in combat were formidable. A clear example is Azula was able to generate and manipulate blue flames, which science class will tell you are hotter and more intense than the traditional orange flames. This already indicates that Azula is at a high level of mastery over firebending, and that she certainly knows how to put it into practice. But she even goes a step further and can manipulate lightning. Within the Fire Nation, only those firebenders who had achieved an advanced level of firebending mastery were able to generate and control the highly concentrated and powerful energy of lightning. To give a bit more of an idea of how difficult to achieve this, Avatar The Last Airbender, only 2 other firebenders were known to bend lightning, Uncle Iroh and Lord Ozai. Some may say that Zuko did as well, but his was a bit different in that if he was able to be struck by lightning, he was able to absorb it and redirect it, but he was never shown to be able to generate and manipulate lightning himself. Azula was also fierce in combat. In Book 2 and 3, many characters struggled in their fights against Azula. In the episode The Chase, Azula, Ty Lee and Mai tracked down the main hero gang and Zuko and Iroh in a small town. Towards the end of the episode, Azula held her own against Aang, Zuko, Katara, Toph and Sokka. Despite fighting against 4 elements and Sokka's boomerang, Azula was unfazed, unhurt, and even caused an explosion that left her opponents worse off than she was.
Uncle, get up.
I thought you guys guys could use a little help.
Thanks.
Well, look at this. Enemies and traitors, all working together. I'm done. I know when I'm beaten. You got me. A princess surrenders with honor.
But one episode that really showcased her strength is the Crossroads of Destiny episode. This is actually one of my favorite episodes, mainly because I thought Zuko had finally committed to being an anti-hero and was no longer under the strain to try and impress his father, Lord Ozai. But I'll go into this later as it involves Azula again. But another thing that occurred in this episode, which made me believe she's way more powerful than she gets credit for, is that I think she killed Aang in this episode. Premise: Azula now has full influence of the soldiers in Ba Sing Se, as alluded to earlier in this video. She cornered Aang, Zuko, Katara and Iroh in the undergrounds of the city. While Aang was in the Avatar state, getting ready to unleash his full power, Azula with her lightning bending ability struck him in the back and I believe actually killed him. Iroh helped Katara get away with Aang's lifeless body, and Katara was able to bring him back to life with her ability as a healer. Now, I say I believe Azula killed Aang because some people believe she only put Aang into a deeper slumber, but most sources I've read have said he died, and from the animation what I watched, there was nothing to suggest the boy was taking some powerful nap. It clearly looked like our favorite airbender had died for a bit from Azula's insane ability and power. Like all great villains, Azula showed zero mercy in her actions and would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. Azula was fixated on capturing the Avatar in the early portion of the show, which she did achieve to some extent. She never showed any hope of letting Aang go or helping the protagonist for any reason whatsoever, as opposed to Zuko, who often at times dropped his determination to capture the Avatar for the greater good. As mentioned earlier in the drill episode where Azula was infiltrating Ba Sing Se, Azula did not care that her actions were harming innocent civilians. Her focus and goal was to destroy the city walls and capture the last major stronghold of the Earth Kingdom, which she eventually did. Heck, there's even an episode called The Beach where Azula, Mai and Ty Lee take a break from their goals and chill on the beach. While this seemed like a typical beach filler episode, it actually showcased more of Azula's tenacity. Throughout the episode, Azula never truly relaxes. Instead, she remains relentlessly focused on maintaining her power and control over her friends, even going so far as to manipulate and torment them in order to achieve her goals.
6 sisters who look exactly like me? It was like I didn't even have my own name. I joined the circus because I was scared of spending the rest of my life as part of a matched set. At least I'm different now. Circus freak is a compliment.
Guess that explains why you need 10 boyfriends, too.
I'm sorry, what?
Attention issues. You couldn't get enough attention when you were a kid, so you're trying to make up for it now.
Well, what's your excuse, May? You were an only child for 15 years, but even with all of that attention, your aura is this dingy, pasty, gray...
I don't believe in auras.
Yeah, you don't believe in anything.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I can't be as high-strung and crazy as the rest of you.
I'm sorry too. I wish you would be high-strung and crazy for once, instead of keeping all your feelings bottled up inside. She just called your aura dingy. Are you gonna take that?
What do you want from me? You want a teary confession about how hard my childhood was? Well, it wasn't. I was a rich only child who got anything I wanted, as long as I behaved, and sat still, and didn't speak unless spoken to. My mother said I had to keep out of trouble. We had my dad's political career to think about.
Well, that's it then. You had a controlling mother who had certain expectations, and if you strayed from them, you were shut down. That's why you're afraid to care about anything, and why you can't express yourself.
You want me to express myself? Leave me alone!
I like it when you express yourself.
Don't touch me! I'm still mad at you.
My life hasn't been that easy either, May.
Whatever. That doesn't excuse the way you've been acting.
Calm down, you guys. This much negative energy is bad for your skin. You'll totally break out.
Bad skin? Normal teenagers worry about bad skin. I don't have that luxury. My father decided to teach me a permanent lesson on my face.
Sorry, Zuko.
For so long, I thought that if my dad accepted me, I'd be happy. I'm back home now. My dad talks to me. He even thinks I'm a hero. Everything should be perfect, right? I should be happy now. But I'm not. I'm angrier than ever, and I don't know why.
There's a simple question you need to answer then. Who are you angry at?
No one. I'm just angry.
Yeah. Who are you angry at, Zuko?
Everyone. I don't know.
Is it Dad?
No.
Your uncle?
Me?
No.
Then who? Who are you angry at?
Answer the question, Zuko.
Talk to us.
Come on, answer the question.
Come on, answer it.
I'm angry at myself.
As the series went on, Azula's motivations became more complex. She began to realize that her father didn't view her as an equal and was just using her as a pawn in his own conquest for power. This realization caused her to become increasingly paranoid and unstable, and her goal shifted to now a desire for complete control over the Fire Nation and a willingness to eliminate anyone who threatened her position. And just to bring back the other qualities of her leadership, her mercilessness, and her skill and abilities, in the series finale Sozin's Comet, Azula was crowned as the new Fire Lord. However, her reign was a bit short-lived. But regardless, it's a showcase of her tenacity and her mercilessness. She became so obsessed that she was willing to kill Zuko, her own brother, to eventually become the Fire Lord. It goes without saying that Azula didn't have any remorse or care for anyone. She would be merciless to achieve her goals and would crush anyone in her way, regardless who they are and how important they are in her life. Honesty, integrity, honor? Pfft, you can't be a great villain with those attributes. Deceit and manipulation is where it's at, and Azula had plentiful. Azula is known particularly for gaslighting her friends and enemies throughout the series. For those not in the know, gaslighting is like a form of emotional abuse that involves manipulating someone into doubting their own thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. Azula frequently uses this tactic to control those around her and maintain her power. Let's go back to the beach episode. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a filler episode, but it really showcased her manipulation skills. This was rough. Azula manipulates her friends Mai and Ty Lee into revealing their deepest fears and insecurities, and then uses this knowledge to emotionally manipulate them and control them. She also gaslights Zuko by making him doubt his own beliefs and motivations, leading him to question his loyalty to Team Avatar. Also, speaking of Zuko, remember when I mentioned about the Crossroads of Destiny episode? So, prior to this episode, the show made you really feel that Zuko has turned a new corner, that he has accepted for who he is and what he wants to be. That he did not need the validation from his father anymore that was hindering his own growth and making him become so insecure. This took a lot of work, mainly from my favourite uncle Iroh, who helped Zuko on this journey come to peace with himself. You really felt that Zuko has turned a new leaf, he's a new man, and maybe instead of fighting the Avatar, he could join forces. As a viewer, it was really exciting. after so many episodes of growth, we could potentially see a new alliance. And then, in the Crossroads of Destiny episodes, he bumps into Azula. All the work that had been done to Zuko to change his ways were undone. And the way she did this was insane. First, she showed empathy towards Zuko, although as viewers we know she clearly didn't care, saying that she understands what it's like to be overlooked and underestimated by their father. She then inserts doubt into him and his allegiance to Team Avatar, questioning whether they really see him as an ally or will they always see him as a traitor.
But Zuko, Prince Zuko, you're a lot of things, but you're not a traitor, are you?
Release him immediately.
It's not too late for you, Zuko. You can still redeem yourself.
The kind of redemption she offers is not for you.
Why don't you let him decide, Uncle? I need you, Zuko. I've plotted every move of this day, this glorious day in Fire Nation history, and the only way we win is together. At the end of this day, you will have your honor back. You will have Father's love. You will have everything you want.
Zuko, I am begging you, look into your heart and see what it is that you truly want.
You are free to choose.
Now she has Zuko feeling alone. His father won't accept him. There's doubt if Team Avatar will accept him. Who can Zuko really rely on? Well, Azula wasn't done. Playing on Zuko's internal desire for love and acceptance, Azula says Zuko deserves recognition and acknowledges how strong Zuko is and how powerful he can become. She reminds Zuko of his desire to return home and reclaim his honor, and thus convinces him that joining her will be the only way to achieve that goal. This was a masterclass of breaking down a person's character through deceit, lies and manipulation, and then getting them to do what they want. And throughout the series, Azula has shown she can break down the will of anyone through just her own words and not having to even get physical. It's something that is rarely seen in villains. Most of the time, it's just big bad villains who have incredible amounts of power. And by the way, as mentioned before, Azula is definitely not lacking in that department. But to also have the skill of destroying a person by manipulation and words makes to me one of the most dangerous villains in animation. In animation and all other types of media, there are a number of fantastically written villains, and the best villains are those that are so evil you support unconditionally for the heroes to defeat them. And that's actually more difficult to do than it seems. Azula to me is one of the top and probably one of the most underrated villain ever because of this. Most of the time there's always a sympathetic backstory of when villains were normal or decent people, and then one incident or one bad day starts their villain character arc. The typical cliche of the villain origin story. But for Azula, I believe she was destined to be this way. When you are born and raised in an environment where there was a constant obsession with being the most powerful, you don't need a bad day or an incident to become a villain like Azula. And that's something I really appreciated about her as a character. That there was nothing to be sympathetic about towards her. She was evil and powerful, and that came through very clearly in the show, which in turn made you root for Aang and the gang to defeat her and the Fire Nation. She's also a villain with many layers. She could defeat you with her firebending power, with her intelligence, or with her own words and break you down as a human being. There aren't many villains that have perfected all of these departments, but Azula did. And this really helped drive the story for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not only were the other characters great, but with Azula in the picture, you never knew what she had planned next, how she would do it, and if our heroes can even overcome it. This leads to even greater storytelling and makes you more captivated as a viewer. Azula was a genuine threat to the show, more so than Zuko, and more so in my opinion than Lord Ozai. Avatar is a great show, not just for the story, but also for the characters. Aang, Sokka, Toph, Katara, Zuko, Uncle Iroh, even Appa and Momo have special places in my heart and many fans' hearts as well. But with that great cast of heroes, you need a great villain, and I believe that Princess Azula fills that role perfectly.